I could do an avatar.
No, no one wants your avatar.
All right.
All right. Hello and
Okay.
welcome to Just Animals Podcast. I'm Elle, and with me as always is my dad, aka Guy.
Hello, Pod World. And
And-
I didn't even know we were on YouTube. I'm YouTube famous.
We've been on YouTube for like a year now.
How about
Anyways,
TikTok?
no. And back with us for a while, good friend of the show, all the way down from Sydney, Ben Pearson from World Animal Protection Agency. It's been a while, but we're happy to have you back. How's everything going for you, Ben?
Fine, thank you. Yes, we've had some good developments down here. We're just chatting before the show about it's been another one of those years in Australia where we've had more sort of catastrophic weather events, flooding and the like, which is never fun. But we just had a federal election which returned a bunch of good progressive parliamentarians, and we're kind of hoping that we're going to get some stuff done for animals in the next term of parliament. So we're in a good mood.
Fantastic.
That's great
to hear. And
it's great to be back on the pod.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for being back.
US can follow suit. So now that the world is opening up and everyone's more or less suffering from COVID fatigue and just pretending it doesn't exist, one big thing I wanted to talk about on the show and have especially Ben, one of our experts, come on, ecotourism and responsible ecotourism. I don't know if you guys remember, if you heard the episode, we had a guy from the founder of Elephant Care Unchained, who, dispelled the myth that, going to Thailand or Southeast Asia and doing the elephant rides is a big no-no. They say they take care of them, but there's no need for you to ride an elephant. If you really want to have your elephant Southeast Asia experience, go to a sanctuary where you can help bathe them and feed them, but you don't need to be riding them, type of thing.
And don't put your hand in the tiger cage or the lion cage.
Well, that too. But yeah, so responsible ecotourism. How would one make sure that they are going to a responsible
So
place?
I will, thank you, Elle. I will pick up on one thing there. One thing we're really trying to make people understand is that even the bathing and the washing is pretty problematic. And the reason is this, elephants are wild animals. They're a dangerous wild animal. And if you're up close to an elephant, or for that matter, a tiger or a species like that, you've got to ask yourself a pretty basic question. Why is this animal allowing me to be in such close contact with it? And unfortunately, even those elephants, which are doing the washing and the bathing, those are elephants which have probably been through that brutal training process, that crush, because otherwise they wouldn't be sitting in a body of water with a whole bunch of tourists splashing them and, doing all the stuff they do. So generally what we say to people is it's a pretty simple thing. Look, but don't touch. If you're being offered an experience which involves you coming into direct contact with an animal or getting inappropriately close to it, then you should really avoid that experience. You want to be seeing animals from afar. There's some great sanctuaries out there. I've been to a couple myself, where you get in there and you see elephants in particular, obviously not living a wild life because they're still within the confines of the high welfare venue, but they are living a life which is more, consistent with what they would have lived in the wild. And more importantly, they don't have to go through training anymore. They don't have to be afraid of their trainers because they're not coming into contact with human beings. So that's your most important criterion to have a look at.
Okay, Ben, now I feel guilty
forget the washing thing.
about swimming with the dolphins.
We've already discussed that. We all feel bad when we did dolphins in captivity. We all know better now. So thank you, Ben. This was
like
20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago, but it was amazing. I have to tell you, it was an amazing experience. I enjoyed experienced dolphins up close, but having seen the Cove, which I'm sure you've seen, I know better now.
And dolphins in captivity. Yeah, right. They look happy, but that's just the shape of their face, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's right. But just to make you feel better on that one, we asked our staff recently, we said, come on, everybody who's got a photo of you doing something, sort of inappropriate with an animal, send it through. And they're all there. Here's me at 10, patting a dolphin. Here's me on an elephant ride. Here's me cuddling a koala.
Right.
We're not after people about that kind of stuff. We're not saying you should feel bad about it. All we're saying is, all right, that happened. Maybe communicate with your family and your friends and the others. Look, I wouldn't do that again. And here are the reasons why, because that kind of education piece is the most important thing in terms of changing attitudes and protecting wild animals.
Okay, Ben. So let me ask you a question. You just maybe said the key word there, wild animals, because I do like to ride horses. And now after talking to you, I'm starting to question that. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
So obviously horses are domesticated and have been over generations so that they actually now, are fine with human company. All I would say there is if you're in a country and you're offered a horse ride or you're offered a donkey ride or something like that, again, just apply some common sense. Have a look at the animals. Does it look well fed? Does it look like it's actually been watered? Can you see where it's kept in between rides? Is there some shade there? Is it, how many hours a day is it there? So to confess to you, one of my inappropriate animal experiences was I was in Central Java, and my friend and I wanted to climb up a volcano, and this guy says, "Hey, I'll take you there on the donkeys." And we're like, "Great." So I get on. Now, I'm not a small guy, and I got on this donkey, and about halfway across, I realized I don't think this donkey is enjoying this very much by the fact that it's panting. So I hopped off and just walked alongside it. But that's what I mean, just that kind of common sense,
Isn't a mule better for that type of work than a donkey, though?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. But again, just think about how big
Yeah.
you are, how big that animal is, but all those things. Have a look at how you think it feels. Because I, for example, know that while I wouldn't have a problem with anyone riding a horse, for example, because generally that's something that I know a lot of horses are fine with. You do see things like the horse-drawn carriages in Central Park, New York, and certainly, the stories you hear about that are pretty poor, huh? I mean, it seems like there's some pretty low welfare situations there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree. Although in Chicago, though, because Chicago used to have it too, and an animal rights group came along and more or less they ended up taking the horses away, especially once COVID hit. However, in Chicago, you had to have like a specific permit. Like this was a prize thing. Like your horses couldn't look ratty. They had to be well taken care of in the state. I mean, they were kept in the same stables that Chicago PD keeps their horses. And they were definitely well taken care of. So it seemed a little, if you're animal activist, which I get it, but it seemed like I feel like there's a better cause to focus your energy on right now, because these horses, they're actually taken care of very well, and they're draft horses, so horses that like to pull and want to pull stuff. So I was a little conflicted on that. I get, if they're kept out in the, they're kept out in the snow unshoed, and they don't, they put jackets on them in the winter time or whatever, and then sometimes if the weather's bad, you don't even see them. So they're very well taken care of. But as you know, Central Park, they're definitely the ones where it's like, oh, okay.
What was that place we went to in LA where we held that? I don't know if we held that animal, the one that was like an anteater kind of thing.
So there's a sanctuary north of LA County, or in North LA County, that basically a lot of celebrities, as we know, and TV personalities like to get exotic animals as pets. And then they realize, oh, it's a wild animal. I can't actually control this. So this place actually has a lot of former celebrities' exotic pets that, obviously cannot be reintroduced into the wild. And so that was, and it's in this residential neighborhood, but that pretty much
it is.
I want to say, 90% of the animals there, a couple were, injuries out in the wild, but majority of them were just ex-celebrity pets.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's fascinating. Good on that person, whoever they are. Exotic pets is a huge issue in North America. You guys are such a big demand point for it. Oh my gosh. And it's a real problem. And it's across things. And what you say is right. I mean, it comes back to the point I was making about education. Look, people just don't do the research. So we were focusing, for example, on a species called the African grey parrot. And people are thinking, oh, this beautiful bird, I'll buy it. Okay, so a couple of things you need to know about the African grey parrot. Firstly, just to the cruelty aspect of it, African grey parrots are gorgeous. They mate for life. So if you've got a single African grey parrot sitting in a cage somewhere, then that's cruel in itself. They also generally in the wild in Africa exist in these big family groups. And so again, they're not meant to be a solitary animal. But lastly, if you haven't done your research, you find out pretty quickly they live for 100 years.
Right.
Yeah, they outlive their owner, and then it's like they die. And
that's
it's like,
it. So what are you going to do with that animal after that time? And so this is it. It's fascinating how frequently we come across people who seem to believe that most animals are like dogs and cats and live for say 12 to 13 years. Dolphins is a good example. Guy, one of the things I always do when I talk to people about dolphin captivity and the cruelty of it is I start by asking a question. How long do you think a dolphin lives in captivity at SeaWorld or something like that? And people are like 10, 12. Okay, the answer is 50 years.
50? I thought it was like 30, which is still a lot.
It's 50 years. So the last dolphin we know of that died at our SeaWorld on Gold Coast was about 56.
Wow.
The one that died at Coffs Harbour, which is just north of me here, it was also about 52. That's how long they live. So yeah, exactly. So when you get that number, you realize how cruel that is, because that tiny little pool, you have a dolphin born, say at SeaWorld down in Orlando, if that got born last week, it'll be there in 2072, potentially.
Well, how long do they live in the wild, Ben?
They're born in captivity. What are they going to do with them?
That's
No,
right.
no,
Well,
I
and they
just,
can't release them. In the wild,
Right.
I mean, obviously, in the wild, yeah, it's different. They can live for that long as well. In some cases, they don't. I mean,
Right. It's probably
and
more
it's in
like 30
fact,
in the wild.
well, they can live as long as in that is their lifespan. But obviously, what they don't have at SeaWorld is predators. They don't have that kind of
right.
stuff. And of course, in the wild, what they don't have access to veterinary care and the like. But I mean, I don't know about you, but my sense in that one is, well, if 50 years doesn't really make up for the fact that in the wild you might have a shorter life, but geez, you'd have a better one.
Right.
For
Yeah.
You really
sure.
would.
Yeah. You're doing natural dolphin things. So,
Well,
but you made a
having
really,
learned,
hold on.
Sorry?
You made a
Go
really
ahead.
good point about, an animal, like a wild animal letting you be that close, like that unnatural closeness of humans,
Hmm.
like, like bathing the elephant type of thing. That's a fantastic point that I never thought of. Was like, why is this animal that is normally, doesn't want anything to do with humans letting you be so close? That's a great question to ask yourself. I
Yeah.
feel like that's probably one key takeaway is, why is this leopard letting me be so close? Or why is this elephant or whatever letting me,
That's
a
right.
human,
That tiger, that wolf. Yeah.
right, being so close and tolerating me being so close to it? You just opened the floodgates
Yeah.
there.
Well, great, because that's absolutely at the heart of all of this. They're wild animals. They're not domesticated. They don't want to be patted. We were just up at a venue in Queensland, Dreamworld, and they almost actively create the impression that the tigers they have are just like big pussycats. So you got this massive sort of 400-kilogram tiger being fed milk and doing a couple of treats and kind of
Milk?
lazing around. You're like, guys, it's an apex predator, right?
Right.
You are demeaning this animal and you're diminishing its actual natural reality in the eyes of the people watching the show. So this is a big problem we have. I mean, a lot of these venues try to claim, look, we've got an educational purpose here. We're trying to create a sense of wonder about these animals because that will lead people to support their conservation in the wild. That just doesn't happen. In a lot of cases, they're just not educating people at all. I mean, the idea that going, for example, to go back to dolphins, that to go to SeaWorld and watch dolphins perform those kind of jumping shows, the idea that teaches you something about dolphins is just utterly absurd. It simply does not. It doesn't teach you anything about dolphins other than that they shouldn't be in captivity.
right.
So if you want to know about wild animals, see them in the wild, or quite frankly, and I think
Yeah.
this is something we also need to be clear on, and Guy, this is you and I showing our age, documentaries now are unbelievably
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, so my daughter, she and I watch David Attenborough documentary,
Oh, he's the
and she is
best.
just blown away by it. You see stuff there which is just phenomenal. So how on earth would you go and see these magnificent creatures in a cage or an enclosure or a pool? Go home, turn on Netflix, go to the documentaries. That's where you'll see these wild animals exhibiting natural behaviors, doing what they do in the wild. And that's the way that you and your kids can get a sense of the majesty of them.
Yeah, that's a great point
Well,
too.
you mentioned the dolphins being in the cage, and as bad or maybe worse is an orca, because we had somebody on talking about orcas and they can go 100 miles in a day. And I don't know how,
Yeah.
being in that pool is probably like you being locked up in your bathroom.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Dolphins are the same. Of course, it's
Yeah.
just inherently cruel to keep an animal in such a small space when in their natural range they would do so much more. And it's not even just that it's small, it's barren, it's chlorinated. You don't
Yeah.
have the richness of the ocean environment. That's
Right.
the part of it as well.
Right. They don't have to go hunting for food, but I would hope that they're fed well, but still,
Yeah, no,
it's like,
that's right.
yeah.
They
had
are.
Bob
if you
Pittman on.
if you fed me filet mignon in my bathroom and I was locked in all day, I would say, okay, I'm done with the filet. Let me out.
Well, that's a point. We sometimes make that point. If I said to you, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to put you in, and not even your bathroom, but I'm going to put you in a really nice hotel room. Okay, you're going to be born in that hotel room. You'll live to 50 years of age, but you'll never leave the hotel room. Oh, and as an extra special little treat, occasionally I'm going to bring paying visitors in, and you can do juggling for them and perform some tricks. I mean, I don't know about you. I'd be kind of like, is there an option B that I could consider here?
Right. Can I just throw me out the window at this point? Like,
Maybe 30 years
Yes,
over
option B.
there.
yeah, no kidding.
We should
So
make light of it, but
that's
really.
a good point too. I mean, yeah, because when Bob Pittman was on our orcas expert, he did say his friend called him saying, "Hey, there's a pod of orcas. We just saw them," and then 8 hours later, Bob
They were
saw the
100
same,
miles away.
right, 100 miles away.
That's
Bob
right.
saw the same pod because they recognized like the door, whatever, that how they can tell that what whales it is, what whales they are. Saw them 8 hours later by his house. And
In my
okay,
younger
wow.
days, I always thought that Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus took good care of their animals.
Did they go to Australia? Did you guys let them in Australia?
We have circuses down here. I wouldn't be surprised if they have visited in the past, but I don't know for sure.
So you know who they are, though. I mean, it's
Oh yeah,
it was the
Ringling
big
Brothers.
circus
totally. Yeah.
vendors here.
Well, used to be. They're kind of
They stopped.
persona non grata now.
Right.
Yeah,
But
totally.
you know, because you would think that it probably costs a lot of money to acquire that animal, and they want to take care of that animal. But
And
you're
ship it
right. I
around
mean, they
the
perform. They're not
US.
running around in the wild. So
And they use fear to train them. That I think that's the
I don't know.
coolest thing. They do. Have you
They
not
use that stick. I don't know what that
So
stick is called.
unfortunately, Ben, I don't. You maybe you have seen it. A video. So the elephants were set to retire in like 2016. That finally, you know, enough people had made noise, and Ringling Brothers like, okay, we're gonna no more elephants. You know, we got rid of the lions, the tigers, the bear, the elephants. We're gonna retire the elephants. 2016. A video leaked of their training, and it was just absolutely horrific. It was just pure abuse. I mean, you have with the trainer literally yelling, "Just make them scream." And you hear these poor elephants just cry. I mean, it makes you want to like cry thinking about it. You just hear these elephants just crying in pain. They're starving. And then once that got leaked, they were like, okay, they retired him 2 years early and just put him down in Florida. And, you know, they're in a preserve, finally getting to be elephants. I'm sure still scarred for life, but it's just, you know, Barnum and Bailey were actually pretty bad people in general. One of them actually bought a black woman slave and like used her as his like side freak show. So, I mean, that just kind of, I mean, they were not good people. It's really gross. You should look, if you look into the Ringling Brothers, it was either Barnum or Bailey, but it's like, look at this black woman. And, you know, but obviously inappropriate term for her. And
they used to have
experiments and stuff on it. Just gross stuff made his freak show.
I used to like the Sideshow better than the circus, where, you know, they had the tall man and the fat lady and the bearded lady. And, you know,
choosing to do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
woman, he bought this woman and was like, all right, you're my freak show.
How do you buy a woman?
But that's interesting though. I think that another thing that you know makes me want to observe is that it's interesting sort of how long ago that was, but at the same time it wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't that long
and
ago.
It really, you know, it makes you realize how quickly times change. And I think, and we know this for a fact, that or maybe in your lifetime, Guy, maybe not so much you and I, we will look back on the idea that we used to keep dolphins in pools and just be like, you're kidding me. And they will talk about it in the same way we're talking about, you know, the idea of buying a woman and having her in the Sideshow alley, because it is just grotesque. And there's a point at which I think societies just sort of go through these sort of inflection points where it's almost like the scales start to fall away from their eyes and people get that. And I think we're beginning to go through that when it comes to captive wild animals, because we are seeing that now being frowned upon. You know, we're seeing some good movement globally. We're seeing, you know, Canada banning cetacean captivity. We're seeing France banning the breeding of dolphins in captivity. New South Wales, where I live, the state of New South Wales has banned dolphin breeding in captivity. And we're seeing this movement start to happen because people start to realize that this stuff is just cruel. It's inherently cruel. And we're really making progress. Travel companies, Expedia recently, the big, massive American online travel company, has now got a policy which basically says we're not going to support dolphin captivity. We're not going to sell tickets to places where they, you know, have to be in shows and the like. It's really good stuff. We're really starting to move forward.
That's great. Wow.
Do you have dolphins around Australia?
We have, you see, this is it. We have dolphins in the water. I can go for a walk near the coast in my house, and I have swum at the local beach, and there are dolphins in the water, pods of them.
Why are you paying to go see them?
Well, completely. Why would you go see them in a little backyard pool?
No,
that's just crazy.
Yeah, that's great.
We have to go to Hawaii to see them, but I mean, honestly, in the wild, I'm sure you've seen, they do flips in the wild, like on their own.
They're off the coast of California, Bunny.
Okay, I've seen that. Okay, when I've seen them do theatrics was in Hawaii. Okay.
You're right, but can I just, Guy, picking that up, you're absolutely right. They are in California, and a place that you should be encouraging anyone to go who is in the US is, of course, Dana Point in California. Yeah. And of course, that is a whale heritage site.
That's right.
Which is absolutely fantastic. One of only 5 in the world, but it's absolutely wonderful. And it's not just that the animals are there and you can see them in their natural habitat, but the places that get nominated as whale heritage sites are also ones that like celebrate the animals, that, you know, build cultural events around it, you know, have things where they educate people about the animals and why they're so special. So, you know, places like that are an absolute must for ecotourists.
Well, I don't know if you have this in Australia, but when you're sailing off the coast of California, there we have these organisms that glow and they bioluminesce, and then the dolphins go in there, and you can see the outline of the dolphins in these.
Oh, wow.
It was really freaky because you can't see the dolphins because it's dark, but you can see their shadow in where the bioluminescent
That's
organisms are
amazing.
blocked, and that was really a sight I'll never forget.
And
But
again, didn't have to pay for that. Saw
no,
that.
and you
We
can see
saw
them
it.
jumping out of the
That's
water
right.
too.
That's right.
So speaking of cetaceans and out in their natural habitat, whale watching / dolphin watching, responsible versus not responsible. How does one again kind of find a good whale watching tour to go on? Because I know that's really popular in California. I'm sure on the coast of Australia, it's huge. Hawaii, any coastline.
I think one that maintains the proper distance. We have laws here in the United States.
Okay, we have laws about everything, and people still break them.
I understand,
right.
but most commercial boat operators are not going to lose their license. I mean, the dolphin can approach the boat, but they can't approach the whale.
They're not supposed to.
Well, but the whale can. Remember how close the whale came to the boat we were on?
The whale came under the boat. So Ben, we were in Hawaii in January, and we went with the Pacific Whale Foundation. Sorry, we're going to plug them right now. And they are probably they made a point to say you can go within 100 yards of them, but we stay about 300 yards away, just out of, to give the humpback whales their space. And as the whales got closer, one actually did come under the boat as they were moving in probably at 100 yards away, they just completely turned the boat off, turned the engine off. And, we just sat there for about 10 minutes. And I thought that seemed like a pretty responsible thing to do. Like, okay, we see these whales coming to approach, we'll turn off the engine, less noise pollution, yada, yada, yada. But granted,
completely agree.
There's not a Pacific Whale Foundation everywhere.
Look, I tell you what, though, interesting about what you've just described there. I mean, firstly, yes, kudos to them for turning off the engine and the rest. I think that's great. But a really important thing in all these kind of interactions is that the animal actually has choice. So what that means is there's a situation you described there. It was the choice of the whale to come up and have a look at you, frankly. Now, Guy's initial point is absolutely spot on. You got to keep your distance from the whales. You got to keep your distance from the dolphins. Certainly don't do anything like try to bait them with a bit of food, which are, something, that's the kind of thing. You don't want to entice them to come anywhere near you. But if you've got an operator who's keeping their distance, great. The other thing I'd say is this: if you're on a boat and you're doing some whale watching or something, and you feel you're getting too close, ask the captain, what's going on? Why are we getting so close? I feel like it's a bit, we've got too much proximity to the animal here. Can you explain? Are you keeping in, is this consistent with the guidelines or the laws or whatever you have? I mean, just, keep talking to them about that kind of thing. Make it clear to them that you're someone who knows that you shouldn't be getting too close and you don't want to see them do it. But again, to be very clear, it's that choice which is really the thing. It sounds like you had an absolutely magnificent experience, but it was the choice of the animal to get that close to you.
Here's something that if I ever see it again, I will absolutely say something. In Hawaii, when people latch onto a sea turtle, that's again protected. They're protected species here, and that's really. I've seen it one time. I didn't say anything to the person, but I tell you, if I ever see it again, I will absolutely say something to the person. We have a lot of turtles in Hawaii, and it's so
people
wonderful.
Just lose their minds over them, though.
When you're snorkeling to see them go by, I mean. Some of them even have a number on their shell. I think they're inventoried from the state.
Yeah, they do track them. Like they'll have like a red line or like a red and a yellow line.
Where was that place on the North Shore? They were giant. I mean, like
I was like Ho'okipa Beach or something like that.
They
look like boulders on the sand.
They're just huge. The ones I've seen floating around aren't that big, but those guys were big. And you can see them come up sometimes on the beach when we were in Maui. And fortunately, nobody was touching it. They're taking pictures, which, okay, you're fine with that, but not messing with it. And they have a turtle breeding pond in Hawaii as well.
Right. The protected areas that like no one can go on. And then even the beach that we were at where they had it actually, they had lava rocks marking off a complete section of the beach, and they're like, this is the turtle area of the beach, do not go over there. The lifeguard was there almost sun up sundown saying get away from the turtles, yada yada yada. Although I will say this, so speaking of the animals and the choice, when we were there 2 summers ago, there was a turtle swimming in the water, and I saw it coming. I saw people getting out of the way, and it was coming right at me. Maybe you can answer if this was the right thing to do or not, Ben. It was coming right at me, and so I didn't want to like move and then get in his way and then like hit him. So I just kind of stood there and was like, I'll let you go around me because I don't want to move anyway. And then ended up coming literally right at me. And so I'm like picking my knees up in this water. I'm like, please, I don't want to be the person that stepped on the turtle on accident. But yeah. So is that the right thing to do? Like the animals coming at you, just kind
Probably
of let
sounds
them
about right. Yeah,
choose where they're going to go?
I mean, I get the sense that I probably would have done something similar, Elle. I mean, if the turtle's coming up, it probably knows how to avoid you. It's not like it's never had an obstacle before in its life. So
Right.
I think that's absolutely spot on. But also the conversation we hear, it comes to another thing. And again, this comes back to common sense, which is that, you know, animals don't only get distressed, wild animals, by direct contact and holding and the like, but also proximity can be a problem. And that's also about people doing their research and understanding their animal they're going to get next. And to call out one of our species, we have koalas. Now, people love coming and cuddling koalas, particularly your compatriots, your countrymen and women.
We love to touch everything. That's kind of our MO.
Loving getting up to Australia Zoo, doing that kind of thing. But it's not just the cuddling. You know, for a koala, they're a solitary animal. They're a wild animal. They don't want to have humans anywhere near them. So some states have banned the actual holding and cuddling of koalas, but you can still stand next to a koala on a kind of fake branch and sort of get a photo with it. Now, the problem is for the koala is still stressed. It's still stressed because you're there. It doesn't know what's going to happen next. There's the possibility it might get touched or held in some way. And so it's still not in a particularly high welfare state. So you just can't even do stuff like that. It's a matter of really just a bit of common sense. Think about it, do a bit of research, you know, and when you've got animals where even proximity is a possibility, stay away from them. In particular with turtles. I mean, if you've got a situation where the turtles are there giving, you know, laying eggs and the like, I think it's a pretty fair assumption they don't want to be watched by humans while they're doing that. So, you know, you've got to think about it, do a bit of research, do some education, but also just apply common sense. Think about it. Do I really think the animal would like me to be here in this situation? Is my presence causing it distress? Distress, is it distracting it? You know, those are the basic questions to ask yourself and ask the venue as well. You know,
how is the koala population doing? I know they had some issues with is it chlamydia, something like that?
Well, the major problem they have at the moment is, yes, chlamydia is an issue, but it's mainly habitat destruction.
Right,
And in fact, they've now been listed as they've now been listed as endangered. It's bushfires. The bushfires of 2019-20 were bad, but frankly, that really just accelerated a process that had already been going on for years, which is that we clear a lot of koala habitat for urban development, for agriculture and the like. So roads, mines and the like, and that's the real problem.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about this, because in the United States, if you're doing something that's interfering with natural phenomena, you have to do an offset. So in other words, like, I don't know if Australia has an offset. So in other words, if you're going to clear koala land, you've got to go get some land that's koala friendly and buy that and put the koalas there or something. Do they have that?
So we have that. We call it things like biobanking and offsetting and the like, but there's been just numerous exposés of the fact that it just doesn't work. And, you know, it's all very nice to have these kind of grandly designed schemes, which essentially are all kind of market mechanisms. But the primary question you have to ask yourself is, are there more koalas today than there were yesterday? And the answer is no. And the projections are pretty clear that the numbers are going down, and even governments are acknowledging just how threatened they are. So it's all very nice to talk about biobanking and the like, but what you just really need to do is protect their core habitat. That's what you really need to do.
Okay, so is there or are there koala reserves that it's like, okay, you can't build here. This is koala land.
That's right. We have national parks. We have, places where koalas live, which are protected from development. Certainly, there's been talk of actually creating what they were calling the Great Koala National Park in New South Wales. I think it actually extends a bit to Queensland. That would be absolutely fantastic.
That would be
amazing. It doesn't seem to be. Well, it's a great idea. The current state government here doesn't really seem to be in a favour of it, so that's a problem. But there are some reserves, but again, they're just not enough. I mean, the koala population is declining.
Yeah, but don't you think that? If you had a koala reserve or a koala park and people wanted to come to see them and learn about them, that could be a business
way to make money
to help support the koalas.
That's totally part of it.
Self-funding type of situation.
And it's a part of the solution. And I mean, it certainly is. But, again, the reality is we don't have enough of them. Yeah. And it's all very well to sort of say, here's a reserve over here for koalas. But while we continue to demolish their habitat at the same time, we're just not going to win the fight to protect the species and stop it going extinct, quite frankly. And there was recently an inquiry in the New South Wales Parliament, and it said, look, the way we're going, the koala could become extinct. I mean, imagine that, something as iconic as koalas going extinct. And really, the fact that we're sitting here watching this happen and not introducing the kind of laws we need to protect koalas and a whole range of other native species as well is really just appalling. Hopefully this new government will do something about it. They've made commitments to introduce stronger environmental laws, and that's something we're really looking forward to.
Oh, good. Well,
so
Mark,
here's a question. You mentioned apex predators, and I know that Australia has a lot of sharks. I don't know if you have great white sharks or whatever, but you have sharks
all over the world.
Is there any one in favor of protecting the sharks, because they can be overfished or hunted or what have you? So what's going on with the sharks?
So, good question. Interesting what's going on in Australia. So we have a couple of things that threaten sharks in Australia. The main thing is actually shark nets. Because
that's right, at your
we
beaches.
introduced these shark nets for our beaches. And what we've now found is that actually the shark nets tend to catch the species of sharks, which aren't a problem. And they also catch other species such as turtles and dolphins and dugongs. Now, what's happening in Australia, which I think is fascinating, is that we used to have this idea that, okay, sharks are out there, they're in the water, they're a predator, they predate on us, and therefore we need to put in shark nets and we need to try to shoot them. And there was talk in Western Australia on the other side of sort of drum lines and all these shark control messages. But what's happening is that generally in the community now, you're picking up a bit of a change in attitude now, which is that people started to say, well, there have been shark attacks, fatal ones, recently horrific ones, to be completely clear. Like one guy just near where I live was almost sort of just bitten in half. But what was interesting afterwards was the response from his family and also from the community around there as a whole was not, okay, let's go out there now and start hunting sharks. It wasn't like Jaws or something, with Rob Schneider. It wasn't that kind of response at all. It was much more like, look, when we're out there swimming, when we're out there in that environment, we get that is their home. That is their natural home. There are still people coming up with crazy ideas, but generally you really get a sense that the community is starting to shift to more of an appreciation of that's their home. If you're out in their home, then there's always that risk. And again, I mean, if you look at it, the number of sharks that are killed by people versus the number of people who are killed by sharks, there's certainly a lot more of the former than the latter.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, so are you guys starting to now do away with your shark nets? Because I know that, I mean, I've seen even like in primary school, we would watch documentaries and be like, oh, the shark nets, but it doesn't keep out the box jellies. And then it's like the shark nets are actually kind of more of a problem than they are helpful.
And they're still there. Yeah, we still have shark nets, but I mean, I think we're really moving against them. There's a whole bunch of smarter options now. This, and I think I'm hopeful that is again something we'll sort of consign to the dustbin of history pretty quickly.
Right. Kind of just throw that out. But you made a good point too. When we actually were at the Taronga Zoo in 2018, we got to get up close with the koala, but they're like, no, we don't hold them in this state anymore. So yeah, New South Wales, I guess, has banned it. They're like, I guess up north you can still do it, but you did get to see it and be close-ish to it, which was nice. But they're like, yeah, we don't hold anymore, we don't touch anymore, type of thing, which was. Initially we were kind of bummed, but it's like, oh, that's actually probably for the better. They probably don't like being picked up because they're not.
Oh, no, that's right.
It's a koala.
And Taronga did some of the research, which actually helped us make the case that you shouldn't be doing that, even being near them, because they did studies which showed that even when you have humans in the enclosure with the koalas, their stress levels, as measured by cortisol levels in their poo, is increased. They're clearly not happy about that being there.
Right.
How is the condition of your reefs? Are they doing okay?
The Great Barrier Reef.
No, absolutely not. The Great Barrier Reef is suffering ongoing bleaching events. It suffers from runoff from agricultural activities. The crown of thorns starfish is still a big issue. But above it all, the major problem is still climate change. And that's the thing that we need to deal with. And hopefully this new government has better climate change policies than the last one. They're still not good enough, not close. But we're really hoping there's going to be more action there. And we know it's been said by scientists repeatedly that climate reefs are really the canary in the coal mine when it comes to climate change. Those bleaching events are really serious, and they're becoming more and more frequent.
Well, it's interesting that COVID helped the Hawaiian reefs, at least the ones in Maui, because there were less people in the water wearing sunblock that is bad for the reef.
Do you guys have all that reef safe sunblock? What we need is just policies out banning those chemicals, because there's just no point.
I don't know why we don't as a nation.
ban
I think we do.
non-reef
When you
safe
go up there,
sunscreen.
people are pretty clear about that, when you apply and all the rest of it. I think also, though, it's also in your interest because in this country, anyone with kids knows that you apply sunscreen half an hour before you get in the water, that kind of typical thing, because otherwise it just washes off. We all used to do this as a kid. We get there, we put it on, we jump in, and basically
and
just
it's
wash
like
straight off. It hasn't
you're not even
absorbed.
doing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so you guys are promoting reef safe sunscreen in Australia as well?
I don't actually know if people are. I assume up in Queensland there is something about that from some NGO somewhere. There's always a lot of good people doing good work on these kind of things. We particularly are not, as in our organization is not. It's not something it's a focus for us.
Sure, of course.
Has your organization thought about shortening the suffix of the email to APW or something like that?
Guy, you're touching. That's a touchy subject. It's a rather lengthy email. I have to say, it's a lengthy name. It's a lengthy email. I hear that. No, we're happy with what it is. We feel that if you really want to talk to us, you'll be happy to take the time to type our name out properly.
I didn't even copy and paste. I had to type that whole thing. It's like, wow. Okay, fine.
No, we love it. Absolutely. So then really quick here before we wrap up, well, crap, of course I just forgot my question.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah. Oh, anyways, how can we support WAP, and what are some things that we can be on the lookout for here in the States?
Well, I mean, in the United States, you have an absolutely fantastic office of World Animal Protection. We have a new country. Yep, absolutely. So they've got an office in New York, and they do a lot of really excellent work. So I'd certainly encourage people to go to, I think it's worldanimalprotection.org.us as your first port of call. Have a look at the campaigns they're doing and support them. They're doing some great things. There's one they're doing now against the, I think it's called Groupon, the travel company, and they're calling on them to adopt animal-friendly policies. So certainly get on there and be a part of that. The American office does absolutely fantastic work. I know a lot of them well, and they're good people doing good things for animals. So hop on their website, follow them on all the social media channels you have, and there's a whole bunch of call to actions out there and ways that you can get involved, and I'd really encourage you to do that.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Absolutely. And then what can we do to help WAP Australia?
Same thing. Pop on our website.
Okay, perfect.
.org.au. We've got a whole bunch of things going on down here, and always happy to have people from overseas signing our various petitions and pledges and making their voice heard.
Absolutely.
Every time we talk to someone from Australia, I always learn a new word or an expression or something that Australians say differently.
Are you still stuck on abattoir?
Abattoir was one, and then uni, I think, is university, and then what do you call like a pickup truck is called a ute or something like that? Ute.
We generally shorten words.
Yeah,
yes,
and then
is utility vehicle.
Right, and then what I just liked what you said, and I haven't heard it in forever, was hubbub. Now
it's a bit of an English word, not so much.
We know what. I had to go look up I knew what it was, but I would look up the formal definition of hubbub, and thank you for sparking that word back up to bubbling it up into my head. I'm gonna adopt hubbub.
Yeah, you're gonna
always happy to expand someone's vocabulary.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming back on, Ben. If you guys, when you have another new big campaign, there was a protest in front of Louis Vuitton in LA, I think either this week or last weekend, actually saying stop animal abuse, and I was like, good. I wish I knew about it a little bit sooner. I would have gone up there.
Well, hey, let me ask you a question in return. When are you going to broadcast this podcast? When are you popping it up?
Probably this week, since it's summer in the Northern Hemisphere, so people are going to be traveling. So this is definitely something I want to get out soon.
All right, so let me do a quick call out, which is that this Saturday, as in next Saturday, it's Tuesday in Australia while we're recording this, Monday for you. Next Saturday is another one of the International Days of Action calling on Hermes to drop croc. So little known fact, Hermes and Louis Vuitton are the biggest makers of crocodile skin handbags, and most of the crocodile skin they use comes from Australia. Saltwater crocodiles are the prime product in those. So we have an international coalition of people who are doing a rolling series of actions targeting them. And so get online, find out where your International Day of Action protest is. There's numerous in the States, I think, and get along. I'll certainly be outside the MS store in Sydney, giving them a hard time, and I'd encourage everyone to get involved.
Perfect. I'm going to go get my crocodile suit dry cleaned so it's ready to go.
All right, Ben, thank you so much for your time and getting caught up with things going on in Australia. And
And
It's
worldwide.
always good to
'cause
talk
that
to you too.
We hopefully will see you again. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I
Have a
hope so.
great-
Let's
have
talk
a great
soon.
rest of the
Bye,
day.
El. Bye,
Absolutely.
Guy. Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.